I'm Natalie McCool and welcome to my podcast McCool and The Gang. This is a special series of episodes where I'll be chatting to female artist producers about music production. The reason for this special series is that earlier this year I was awarded an Arts Council grant to develop my own music production. As an artist, I've always had a vision for my music, and when it comes to the production, it's something that I've always been heavily involved with. And most recently, I 100% recorded, produced, and mixed 2 tracks from my recent album, Memory Girl, something which I'm incredibly proud of. Now I've got the opportunity to really lean into that. As part of this podcast, I decided to speak to other female artists who also produce their own music to explore what inspires them and how they work. This episode, I'm really excited to welcome Object Blue, a techno DJ and producer who was born in Tokyo, raised in Beijing, and is now based in London. After giving herself just 1 year to learn Ableton and start producing her own music, she is now playing shows and festivals internationally and has recently released an EP, Grotto, which showcases her experimental and theatrical techno. Get ready for such an honest and incredibly inspiring chat about access and acceptance to music, about disregarding outside opinion to figure things out for yourself, and about creating tracks from shady voice notes. Here we go.
I think you're a magnet, and I'm a magnet too. People just attract like magnets, like me and you. And when we both...
Hello everyone and welcome to McCool and The Gang. This month's guest...
Cute.
Yeah, it's so cute. This month's guest is Object Blue. Hi, Blue.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, you have Francis Bacon behind you.
Yeah, I love him.
Me too.
Oh, do you? Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely love him. He's like one of my favourite artists ever.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I went to see his art at the at the Tate Modern, and I was just like... insane.
Yeah, I'm sad I didn't go to that. I missed it. Where are you based again? You're in the north, right?
Yeah, I'm in Liverpool, yeah.
Cool.
But you know what? Next month I'm actually moving to London because I've got a whole bunch of other stuff happening for this project. Where I'll be like shadowing some producers and things like that. So I'm gonna be moving down. Yeah, gonna be living in Hackney.
Oh, cool. I live in Hackney as well.
Oh, do you?
I mean, everyone does.
Everyone does, yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you been living in London?
Since 2011.
Wow, that's...
There was maybe like 1 year blank where I had to move out because of visa issues, but then I moved back in. So yeah, I've been here like on and off pretty much the whole time since 2011.
Oh, that's so nice. Wow.
Yeah, next year is gonna be my 10-year anniversary actually, because I moved here for uni.
Oh, did you? Yeah. What did you do at uni?
I did English Lit.
Yeah.
And then I started producing music, and I applied to Guildhall School of Music, and I did an electronic music course from 2015 to 2018. And then after that,
cool.
I've been on a musician visa, basically.
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. I love I you know what? I nearly did it was English or art for me at uni. So I'm a big like fan of English literature.
But you did art instead?
No, I did music. I did I went to LIPA, which is in Liverpool. It's like a performing arts school, but I did music.
Cool.
And yeah, never looked back really.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Once I went into music, I never looked back either. I did like some internships at publishers, and it was just so awful. Just like Googling ISBN numbers and putting them into a spreadsheet for 3 weeks straight. They didn't let me do anything else. And I was like, I don't want to die like this.
Yeah, I don't want to die.
Yeah, like it's so sad. So it was like Google the ISBN number and like collect the British price and American price and put them in a spreadsheet for 3 weeks.
You'd just be like...
Yeah, and then I was like, okay, I finished. Can I do anything else? And they were like, can you organize everyone's Google calendars? And I was like, can I like touch a manuscript? And they were like, no, we don't even have an editing department because we're the British branch and Norton is an American publisher. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, sad.
Yeah, you were like, right, I'm gonna buy Ableton now, and I'll see you
Yeah.
in 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. I bought Ableton. I bought like a MIDI keyboard first because I didn't even really know what a MIDI keyboard did, but I thought I needed one, so I bought like a tiny Akai Mini, and it came with like a £50 voucher off of Ableton. So I went home and then I got the Ableton Intro, which is like £80. I got it for £30 with the voucher, and I just never looked back after that.
Oh, that's amazing. I love stories like that. You've just got to get started. Something's got to get started. I've got a bunch of questions that I kind of put together for you, and that was kind of like one of them. You know, was there one thing that you know, got you started, or you know, started you on the journey of music? Because some, like for a lot of people, I guess music is, I mean, for me it's different because my dad played like blues guitar for like many years, just as a hobby, not professionally, but like, you know, growing up, music was in my house, and but a lot of people don't necessarily have that, so it's kind of like, you know, how did you get into?
I didn't have that. I learned the piano as a child, but that's because like every Asian kid has to. And I really loved it, but like looking back, it's so clear I didn't want to be an instrumentalist, because I'm not about like practicing techniques, discipline, and I just would always improvise, and I didn't like reading sheet music. So, you know, if like there was an adult around me that was like, hey, I think you're actually would be interested in composition or like jazz piano or, you know, sound design, but like obviously like I didn't have that around me. So what resulted was like, oh, I'm just a bad musician, because there is only one way to be a musician currently in my life, which is to get good at piano, and I'm not. So that means I'm bad. And then I also downloaded Logic because like I knew it existed, and I bought it for like my 16th birthday for myself, and I just couldn't get the hang of it. So I was like, okay, I clearly can't make music. I'm not good at this shit. And then so I like put it all away, and I got really back into piano again when I was 18 because I was like, I miss music so much. Like, I need to get back into it. So I like practiced really hard for 2 years, and I got really good at the piano when I was like 18 or so. I would play like at least 4 hours, usually 6 hours a day.
Wow.
And I loved it, but like, you know, it's too late to go to a music school if you've just been practicing piano for 2 years. You know, you can't do a performance course like that. And you know, like music school is all about like which ABRSM grades you have, like, you know, can you sight read? What competitions have you played at? So, and I knew I wanted to study English Lit. And then I thought, well, it's good that I got good at the piano because, like, that's, like, an important mode of self-expression for me. But I'm going to move to London to study English Lit, and hopefully I can keep up my piano. And, of course, I couldn't because, like, I chose a dorm that had a piano in the basement. That's what it said on the website. And I go, and it's, like, under the staircase, and, like, just completely detuned piano with keys missing, you know. And then King's, because King's has a great music department, they have practice rooms on site, but I can't book them because I'm not a music student. So I would like just like hang around like a creepy person and see like an empty piano room, and I'd walk in and I'd play. And then a music student will walk in and be like, I'm sorry, you have to get out, I booked this room. And like also the way they talked to me, like I knew that they knew I wasn't a music student. And of course they could tell because I don't play like one. And it was always just so humiliating, heartbreaking. I would like leave the room and like cry a bit, like this is what maybe could have been, you know? Maybe if I'd practiced when I was younger, maybe if somebody had taken my music more seriously, maybe I could have been that music student walking in with like a reserved, deserved time slot, but I'm not. And it really, really broke my heart. And you know, to the point where like I was dating a serious musician at that point, and I would say if somebody asks me if I like music or if I'm a musician, I'll say no, because I can't bear it, because I'm not good enough for what I want to be, and it like fucking kills me. And he was just like, dude, why can't you just like music for the love of music? Why do you have to like, you know, bully yourself like that? And I was like, because I want to make music, but I'm scared. Like, what if I make it and it's actually not that good? Like, what if, like,
Yeah,
I
that's
think,
always a
what if
worry.
yeah, like, what if I think I'm a genius, but like I could never take that out of me and present it in like a completed form? Like, what if it's just a daydream, you know? And so I did my English lit, which I really love, don't get me wrong. I just don't love anything as much as I love music.
Yeah.
And then I thought I was going to apply to graduate school to do more lit, because I didn't really know what else to do in my life. And I was filling out my grad school applications, and then I just like burst out crying in the library. And like I called my friend and I was like, I don't want to do this, I just want to make techno. Like, that's all I want to do. And then I called my parents and I was like, I'm not gonna go do a master's. Can I move back in? Like, give me 1 year. Like, and if 1 year later I still haven't done anything with my music, like I'll get a job, whatever. And also, like, my parents, like, I'm middle class, so like I knew my parents could afford it. I think this is a decision like a lot of people don't have. But I could afford to say, like, I'm gonna move back in. Please, like, feed me and clothe me and do my laundry for the next year. I'm going to teach myself Ableton. And if I don't get anywhere, fine, you can kick me out. And then so I moved back to China. And because obviously, like, my mom never thought music was real work. She was like, you can't just stay at home. And I'm like, Mom, I'm trying to learn how to use Macs for live. And she'll be like, this is awful. You have to get a driving license. You have to do something with your life. So I got a driving license during this time, which I have not used in like 5 years. But during this time, I taught myself Ableton with the help of a producer friend who lived in New York, so he would make little video tutorials for me. And I also applied to Guildhall School of Music, and I didn't tell my parents because I was like, I'm probably not going to get in. Like, and if I don't get in, there's no point in telling them. If I get in, I'll tell them. I got in, I told my parents, they flipped. Well, my dad was more supportive, my mom flipped. And then my dad was like, well, you're young, like, it's not like you're going to get a chance to chase your dreams later in life when you have a job and a child and mortgage. Yeah, that was really nice of him. I mean, they still don't really know what I do. Like, my dad was like, oh, like, work hard, maybe people will like electronic music one day in your lifetime. I was like, Dad, you listen to Madonna? Like, and then he was like, Madonna's electronic music? And I was like, well, you brought a copy of Hard Candy. Like, tell me, like, what acoustic instruments are in there? And he was like, wow.
Yeah.
So, like, I, like, ran away from my mom and her rage to London. And I went to Guildhall and I started gigging. And by the time I graduated, I had like 2 EPs out, Rinse residency, a few shows in the UK, a few shows in Europe, and I was like, there's no way I can get another visa in the UK, because I already had maxed out the max years that you can be on a student visa in the UK. And I was like, I can't apply for an entrepreneur visa because, like, you have to be making like 7 digits or something, I don't know.
Whoa.
And so I thought I would do what every producer does and move to Berlin. And I was like, I don't want to move to Berlin, I hate that place, like I don't want to go, but like I have no choice. And then like I was like, maybe I'll move to Valencia, the weather is nice. Like, and like I had one producer friend who was Valencian, and he was like, dude, don't come to Valencia, it's dead. Like, and I was like, yeah, but I can't stay in the UK. And I was lamenting it on Twitter, and this Japanese art researcher / curator / music fan was like, why don't you apply for tier 1 exceptional talent visa? And I think they've changed it now. It's called global talent visa. And that's what I applied. And it's 5 years long. I'm on the 3rd year. And after 5 years, I can either apply again or apply for permanent residency. So this is how I've like cemented my life as like a full-time musician in London, in the UK. Like I'm both Chinese and Japanese, but in neither of those countries, I don't think I'll be able to make a living, even if I play the exact same caliber of shows and stuff, because there's just not as much money in electronic music in Asia. So it was really important for me to stay here. And I think this conversation is going to become more and more common now that like Brexit is happening, and a lot of European artists will have to think about visas if they want to stay in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my overview.
Whoa, that is so inspiring. The fact that you just like, you know, I'm going to do this. Give me 1 year. And yeah, that's amazing. Congrats.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing that. Like, it's so nice to speak to someone who is just really forthcoming about the story. And, you know, it's like, even though we've kind of been in lockdown, and I still feel like it's such a busy time. And like, thanks for taking the time to do it. I really appreciate it.
That's okay.
And, you know, when I was kind of searching for people, because I've got 6 producer artists that I'm interviewing, and I really wanted like a breadth of people, you know, because what I do is like in indie pop, so, and I just didn't want to focus on just that. So I was, you know, searching up on electronic music as well, and then, you know, found an interview with you, and I was like, oh my God, yes. And then I watched a live set, and I was like, this is fucking great.
Thanks. Which live set did you watch?
It was the Lab in London.
Yeah.
That was so good.
Oh my God. I was
it.
so drunk when I did that, because I was feeling quite like nervous and shy that day.
Yeah.
So like, and like all my friends were there, and they all gave us like free drinks. So I was like, I'm gonna have 1 drink with my friends. But then like the filming got delayed by an hour and a half. So I just kept drinking without like realizing. And then once I got on the decks, I was like, oh my God, I'm so drunk. But then it was really fun.
Yeah, it looked so much fun. I'd love to come and see you live as well when I'm in London. I'll give you a shout.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and you know, looking at kind of your kind of interviews and bio, it's such an interesting story, and you've done so much already, you know, and it's just a pleasure. So thank you. So yeah, this is so cool, and we've kind of already covered how you got started, because I was really interested in what the electronic music scene is like in Beijing versus the UK. So it's not a kind of a big scene over there.
No, I mean, the electronic music scene in Beijing, well, wherever it was, I did not find it, because I grew up in a super sheltered bubble of like, I went to an international school, like with just expat kids next to the airport. It was like the middle of nowhere. So I'm very envious of UK people who like are like, oh, my parents like had records at home, or like my dad was a DJ, or like you know, they started like going to like illegal raves when they were like 14, and they'd heard, you know, garage and bass and dub at this point. But it wasn't like that for me at all. I listened to a lot of rock and R&B and classical music as a kid, just because like I liked everything. And then when I came to the UK, like, I really wanted to find out more about electronic music, but I didn't know where to start. I didn't know where to look. Like, I didn't know Resident Advisor existed, you know? So, like, you know, my friends would be like, oh, let's go to a club. And I'll be like, yay, club! Like, and like in Beijing, at least you can go to clubs and get drunk. And it's like all gonna be top 50. But that was like my clubbing upbringing. So like dancing in a club was never like a new experience for me, but dancing to like niche music that I really like and going there for the music selection specifically, that was a completely new experience that only happened when I moved to the UK.
Yeah.
You know, I would like get taken to like clubs in Soho by my friends and be like, what the fuck, like this is not where I want to be. And then towards the end of my first degree, I made some friends who were into like really cool music, and they started taking me out. And like it was, I think maybe it was 2014 or 2015, I went to Corsica Studios to see a Janus showcase, which is a Berlin collective.
Oh, wow.
And I saw Kablam DJ and Mesh DJ, and I was like, oh my god. Like, I had no idea you were allowed to play music like this. Like, I had no idea you were allowed to make music like this, and it just like blew my like music world open. And then I've just been really into like experimental clubs since then.
London has got so much going on, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's so special. Like the reason why I diss Berlin is because like in Berlin you go out and like you know you're going to hear 4/4 all night, and like I love 4/4 and hard techno and industrial techno and stuff, but like I don't want to just listen to that. And in the UK, if I go out, like I know I'll hear like some jungle, some dub, some bass, and I really love that variety. And people are way more open-minded. Like, I really love this Italian producer, TSVI. He lives in Hackney as well, and we made an EP together last year. And he does a lot of like really syncopated, Indian-inspired sort of rhythm, because his parents were Hindus and like Hindu-believing Italians. So like, you know, while everyone was listening to like choral music at church on Sundays, like he would listen to like Indian devotional music. And it really shows in his rhythm. It's very syncopated and very complex. And like, I know like when I play his tracks in London, like people go nuts. Like if I know that a DJ set is kind of like losing his steam, I put a TSVI track on and it's like a lifesaver. But he told me he played at Tresor in Berlin, which is such an institution. And like people just left.
Wow.
You know? If he played 4/4, people would come back in. But if he played a bit more like broken rhythm, no. And I just really don't like that. Like I love broken rhythm, and syncopation and like a bit of unpredictability.
Yeah.
I like tracks that make you dance, but you're also confused. Like, wow, I didn't know you could dance to this, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I really love the UK music scene, and that's why I want to base myself here as a musician.
That's really cool. Half of kind of success is just choosing your own circumstances and choosing where you want to be and like the people that you want to surround yourself with, isn't it? And that's kind of leads to your own like success in your own head.
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny that you mentioned sound design earlier, because like when I was watching your set, there were so many elements of that, and like, you know, using kind of vocal elements in a interesting way. And because I've been doing some library music, which is kind of like focused on sound design and some kind of brand stuff as well, with like mnemonics and stuff like that, which is heavily focused on sound design. So yeah, I just wondered how do you work? Like, you know, what comes first? What inspires you? What's, you know, I don't know. That's quite a grand question.
Sound design usually comes first for me.
Yeah.
When I produce, I'm not really. I can't see the bigger picture usually. I don't plan a track with like how it's going to develop. Like I usually just only have scope for like a single sound that I like so much, and then I try to like build around it. So like, what kind of rhythm would complement this sound design, like this sample the best? You know, what kind of like, does it sound cold or does it sound like really energetic and hot? And then I'm like, oh great, now I have to somehow make this into like 3 minutes. Like maybe I can get away with like putting like making it 2.5 minutes. Like tracks are getting shorter anyways. But yeah, sound design is like the core of my production. I think that's why I got into production, because if it was about melody or songwriting, structure, rhythm, I could have been like a singer-songwriter, or I could have been like a drummer in a band, or I could have been a composer, but none of these things would let me design sound. And I like really like full of high frequency, crisp, shiny, resonant sounds. So obviously you can only do that via machines. And I really like sub bass. So I like the two extreme ends of the frequency range. And production is what lets me do that.
Yeah.
And so my production process is just very much focused on that. Like, how do I make this shiny sound and this booming, like, you know, rib rattling sound? How do I make it exist in like one small world? A few people said like my music sounds like really futuristic, and I guess like that's because of my sound design. It doesn't sound like the future to me because like it's already in my head, so it's like for me it's like past music. But I think it's just like a result of me being really into a particular way something sounds. And I'd always thought this since I was like quite young. I'd be like, oh, I like this song, but I don't like the way the guitar sounds. I wish the guitar sounds were different, you know? I like this song, but I wish the voice was different. And then when I found Ableton, I was like, oh my god, like I can do this. Like this is what it's made for.
Yeah, that's so cool. What are your top, I suppose, like effects or techniques or plugins? You know, when you find a sound, like I do it all the time, like you stumble on a sound, like whether that's a happy mistake or from a plugin then you never used before or whatever, and you just like love it and you use it, you try and use it over like 5 tracks.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. Is there anything buzzing for you right now that you're like, I just love this one particular thing?
Well, like in most of my work, I use a granular synthesis set of plugins. It's made by this music technology professor in America called Michael Norris. So he has it for free on his website. And I think it's called Spectral, Michael Norris Spectral pack. And it has a bunch of different ways of granular synthesis. And I often put sound through some of that. And like it's such a comprehensive pack that I don't even know what like all of it does. I just like throw it on. And also I'm a big believer in like reverb as sound design, and people say like, oh, you can't put reverb on your lower frequencies because it's messy, or you can't put more than 2 different reverbs in a DAW because it sounds messy. But like I've never found that to be true. Like I have reverb on most of my kick drums and no one's complained yet. So obviously you can't make it that wet, you know, it has to be relatively dry, it has to have a relatively short tail, but that's okay. I will put a really long tail and a convolution reverb on my snares. And I think that's the beauty of self-teaching stuff, is you don't learn all these rules.
Yeah.
And like I know usually you have to learn the rules to break them, but like that is not the case with me. Like other producers were like horrified when I went to music school and they saw me put like 4 different reverbs in one track, and they were like, what the hell? Like, how are you gonna clean that up? And I was like, I have to clean it up.
Yeah. How are you gonna clean it up? It's like, well, does it have to be clean?
Yeah. Exactly.
Why does it have to be anything? It's so weird, isn't it? People's rules. Yeah, I guess you're totally right. I'm the same. Like, I'm interested in learning how other people work, and that's really interesting for me, probably to the point where, because I am kind of self-learned as well. It's like, okay, I'm okay then. Other people do it this way. This is okay.
Yeah, I used to think that there was this like one or maybe two correct ways of producing that all my idols were doing. All my favorite musicians must have this process and techniques, and like only if I learn them, I'm going to be as good as a producer as them. And I realized like it's not true. Everyone produces in a different way, and like one is not necessarily better than the other. What matters is, are you able to listen to it like regularly at regular intervals through your process, and have enough of an editorial eye to be like, actually that didn't work, I'm gonna keep this, I'm gonna go in this direction. Like, I used to think production was this complete golden set of rules and procedures that you just follow and you just walk on a straight line, and when you get to the end, that's the end. But it's really not a linear process. Like, I often discard like 80% of what I made so far and like end up completely making a new track. I don't think it's that important to be able to produce what you want to produce immediately or even at the first attempt. I think what's important is the curatorial vision at the end, where you can pick apart your work and, sever the parts that don't work. And that's why I think when people ask me like, oh, what are your like production techniques? And I was like, and I'm like, well, I understand why you're asking me that, but that's like only half the game. Like, a really big part of production is the editing. So when I realized that, I was like, oh, thank God, like I don't have to produce like other people. I'm not doing anything wrong. Yeah, sure, like my production process is probably quite messy, and maybe I lose a lot of time being inefficient or like disorganized where my audio samples are and stuff. But I now know that I'm not a lesser producer just because I produce differently, to say somebody important.
I guess for me it's kind of like there's a big difference between mixing and producing, and sometimes it's easy to get caught up on the mixing aspect of it. Do you kind of mix as you go, and that kind of feeds into the organization aspect of organizing sessions and being like, well, where am I with the sonic, how does it sound sonically? Because I guess that mixing is kind of like a different art again. When you're producing, it's quite creative and you're just focusing on sounds and the kind of structure and how it feels. But then mixing is more sonically, okay, so, EQs, blah, blah, whatever. So I guess that do you do both at the same time? And does that help with your workflow?
I have to mix as I produce. Like, for me, it's a part of sound design. I can see why other people mix at the end, because maybe they work more like a structure. Like, oh, I need to put this idea here and put this idea at the 30-second mark. But because, like, I only go by how it sounds in that moment. Too. And then I think, what do I want to hear next after this? Like, what connects? What makes sense after this 1 second of sound? So I don't understand how people can mix afterwards, to be honest. I never do it. If I didn't mix at all and I mixed at the end, I would have to go back and change so many things. I would like take entire samples and sections out probably, because I'll be like, this is not how I wanted it to sound.
Yeah. I'm the same. I have to do that as I go, because it's really important that this section sounds exactly the way I want it to sound before I can hear where it's going to go next. You know what I mean?
Yeah, same.
Yeah. It can take up so much time doing these things, and I wondered whether you have anything that helps your workflow.
I started organizing all my Ableton files by the month I start them. And that has helped me somewhat. Having a bank of sounds I really like help. I have a few drum kits that I customized myself in Ableton, whether it's edited Ableton native samples or like I would just replace the toms with like a sound of like a tree being sawed down or something.
Yeah, cool.
I get a lot of sounds from freesound.org. I love that website. And also like I know that if I'm in a hurry and I just want to like put a rhythm idea down, I will just load up an Ableton drum rack. But because I don't like the way most of them sound, I usually throw distortion, some panning, and some reverb on. And then like it kind of like becomes like tolerable enough, like close enough to my taste that I can write it down.
Yeah.
And also I do a lot of generative like stuff now. I used to just pencil every MIDI thing in, but now I use a lot of like arpeggiators or sequencers.
Yeah.
To like bulk out the amount of sounds I have in there, and then I
Right,
can go back and either take them out or edit them to a higher standard.
Yeah.
But yeah, that gets like my Ableton like expanding.
Yeah.
Instead of like just sitting in front of like one audio sample for 3 hours, which I sometimes do.
Yeah. Yeah, I have the same issue. That's so cool, yeah. No, that's really great. Because it does take a long time, and sometimes it's like, is there anything that I can do to help this process, please?
Yeah.
I've got a fun, well, it might be fun, it might not be, a fun hypothetical question. If you had a vocal stem and you wanted to start making a track with it, what would be the first thing you would do to it?
I would probably pitch it up or down a lot.
Cool.
Without warping it, so it stretches the time as well.
Yeah.
And if I don't want it to stretch, I will warp it then. And then I will probably reverse it also. I love reversing vocals. I love this weird robotic like allure it gives. And I also like shave off the like mid lower frequency quite a bit, so they sound like kind of like thinner, crispier. That was like 3 things. But
Yeah, no, that's so cool. Yeah, it's so interesting seeing the way different people approach it.
I think that's a great question.
Yeah. I'm so interested in other people's approaches, you know, when they sit down and they think, oh, I feel like making music, so what do you do now then? Like, what's the first thing you do?
Yeah. And like, I think it's much more of a fruitful question than asking, what gear do you use?
Yeah, that's see, that would be of no use for me.
Like, men love that question, and I would just be like,
it's not about the gear though; it's about your ideas, isn't it?
Yeah, like what exactly makes you think this is going to affect your? People use gear in different ways, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I have an Ableton Push right now sitting in front of me. Some people tap out rhythm on that thing. I don't. I cut samples on it, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, what's the point of asking? It's so strange to me.
Yeah.
It's like asking, like, oh, what pencils do you use at home? And I'm like, why are you being so creepy?
Yeah, I don't get it. It's some people are real gearheads, but, like, for me, when I was thinking about the questions I would like to ask, and I was like, well, what do I really want to know? And it's more about approach and generating ideas, and that's what I'm really interested in. So, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you know when something is finished, or do you not know?
When nothing is wrong.
When nothing is wrong, yes. Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
And, like, I always have to, like, do a little apology in interviews when I get asked this question, because I always quote like Gerhard Richter, and like I do not think I am Gerhard Richter, but he said, "Oh, I know when nothing is wrong, it's finished," and I was like, "That's it. That's exactly how it feels."
Yeah, when you're not stopping it all the time.
Yeah, like I listen to it and I'm like, there's nothing to fix here.
Yeah.
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 It's nice when you get there. Although, because of deadlines, I have turned in some things that I think is wrong. Like, I was like, no, this is missing something, or this needs to be changed. But I have a deadline. I'm submitting. Yeah, that sucks. And it's been fine. People like it. You know, you have to learn to let go.
Yeah.
At some point. Yeah.
And then I always find that when you like when it's at the time, it's like life or death. It's like, but that is wrong, and I can't allow that to go out. But then when you listen back to it in like a month, you're like, no, it's fine. I think your ears just get used to like a certain way of hearing it. And this is what I'm like, you know, demo-itis is a thing, because so many times like I've written a track and it'll been like a demo, but I've loved the song and I've listened to the demo over and over again, and then when I come to actually produce and record it properly, I don't like it, because I just want the demo, which is shit, but you know, it's great.
Oh yeah, I so understand. I remember like being a kid, and then I would like search on LimeWire for demos of bands I liked. Yeah. Like Mr. Brightside, the demo was so much better.
Wow,
and, like,
really? You found it?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know why I found it. But I was like an 11-year-old in China, and I was like, I only listened to the Mr. Brightside demo version. But I liked it. It was like more raw and like fun, and I didn't like the, you know, in the actual released single, they made the guitar sound so glinting. Just it sounds like sequins.
Yeah.
Shining in the sun, you know? And then I was like, why couldn't they just leave it a bit more like muddy and hollow and So
that's interesting.
I understand the demo not carrying over completely.
Yeah. I was going to ask, because this is a big thing for me, how do you keep focused and like inspired when you feel as though you've hit a wall? And is there anything that you have, like routines or like little things that you do to get out of that and get unstuck?
Yeah, before I wrote Grotto, the EP I released in March, so I finished writing it in the November before. I like went through like a year-long writer's block, and it was awful. I felt so, and every time I have a writer's block, I think, oh my god, this is the end of it. I'm never gonna write music again, probably. It's such an irrational fear. And like it makes no sense, because like if I stopped writing music, I would probably like shrivel up and die. So like it's probably not gonna happen. But I try not to force it, actually. Once I start feeling myself, and like for me, I know when a writer block happens, because I write stuff and I just don't like it. The next day I'm like, I just don't like, it's not awful, but I'm not excited by it. And that's how it starts. And what I do during that time is get really into my hobbies, take lots of naps, like eat well. And usually the most effective thing is going to gigs, which hasn't happened. So that was quite hard as well. When people were like, how are you staying creative during the pandemic? I was like, bitch, I was not creative before the pandemic. And I am staying very uncreative during the pandemic as well, because of the lack of gigs. But I just didn't force it. And my writer's block broke when I told myself, look, you don't have to write a club album if you don't want to. And it was the first time, Grotto was the first time I actually like had to think about melodies and harmonies, because I'm not really a tonal thinker, and it's such a pain for me, and I'm quite lazy. I like to produce fast. I don't like chiseling away at something for a super long time. I love instant gratification, especially in music. And so I was always like, I don't want to write melodies, just gonna put some riffs in there, And then with Grotto, I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and write some melodies and harmonies. And I like gave myself the permission to do that instead of like churning out like a bangers EP. And then it happened really smoothly. Like I guess I just became honest to what I wanted to make instead of what I thought I should be making.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What's the weirdest thing you've been inspired by?
So my best friend, she's like one of the smartest people I met, but she's insane. She's American, and she sent me this like amazing voice note during the primaries when, you know, Bernie and Buttigieg were still in the running, because she came to London for my wedding, and she was staying at my friend's house. And then my friend was just making conversation, and I'm sure he actually doesn't care about the primaries, but he just thought he had to say something, so he was like, oh, I think Pete Buttigieg is a smart guy. And then my best friend like leaves me a voice note the next day, and she was like, I am so sorry to say this, but I think he's delusional. Like, and she was like, let me tell you about my friend who was at a bar, and he, like, you know, got chatting with this cute girl, and they were flirting a lot. But then she mentioned that she was voting for Pete Buttigieg, and all he could say was, were you in an accident? And my best friend was like, that's the only right answer to somebody mentioning Pete Buttigieg in a positive light. Not that I'm not grateful to your friend for letting me stay at his house. It's very nice of him. But then I like listened to this voice note like 50 times and just like showed it to everyone, like, because it was just so funny. And she has this like Valley girl accent because her dad's from Los Angeles. So like, it's even funnier that like, you know, she is so outraged, but like she does it in this like thick Valley girl accent. And then I was like, I have to put this in a track. So like, I like looped it. And that was like, this belongs in like a nasty bassy electro track. So yeah, I was really inspired. I didn't manage to finish the track because that was during the writer's block.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
You should maybe have another look at it. That sounds like such a great story.
Yeah, it's so great. I love the way she says, like, I'm sorry, but he's delusional. And, like, I was just like, this is incredible.
I love voice notes. They're great.
Yeah. Yeah, they're great.
What kind of things... Yeah, like other things, like non-musical. And it doesn't have to be weird or wonderful. Just kind of like anything that does inspire you. Because I know you mentioned, you got a friend that's baking up there. And, like, yeah. Art really inspires me as well.
Oh yeah, totally. Art really inspires me. Films. Every time I watch a film, I'm like, oh, I need to like make friends with somebody who plays a string instrument so they can do that like like a thing that they do in horror films.
Yeah,
love the sound of it. I really like hearing unrelated sounds, like recognizing a pattern in them. So like if I'm walking on the street and like my footsteps, somebody else's footsteps, and there's like a car beeping, like they're completely unrelated and they're not meant to be functioning together as a piece of music, but like sometimes the rhythm lines up, or sometimes it just sounds like a broken rhythm music concrete thing. Sometimes I notice that like they echo in a similar way because we're walking on the same street.
Yeah.
I find those like, they're not so much inspiration, they're more like games for me. It's really fun for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun to regard everything as music, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. I just have a few more questions because this has been so interesting, and honestly, like, yeah, you've answered all the questions I had without even me having to ask them.
That's great. Good. I talk a lot in interviews, so I'm glad it's helpful.
No, it's so helpful. It's really inspiring.
Good.
If you could collaborate on a project with any human being, who would it be?
Man, this question is not fair. This guy, Khyam Alami, or Khyam Alami, Khyam and Allami. He is a musician and a researcher, and he made this thing, made a sequencer that lets you run a sequence not in like the Western modes of major, minor, you know, even like Aeolian, Mixolydian, whatever, but like it makes microtones.
Oh, wow.
And like you can set which intervals of tones you want, and you make your own microtonal mode, and you can import it into Ableton so you can play your own modes completely outside of the Western tradition on synths.
Wow.
And I would love to work with somebody like that, because there's tons of people whose music I like, right? But if I were to collaborate, I would want someone who has an expertise on something I just cannot even fathom. Like, I don't know how to fucking program microtones so that Ableton can read them.
Yeah.
You know? And I would love to play with him somehow and do a show where we don't do conventional Western modes. Because I love microtones, and I've just never really been able to do anything about that because I don't play an instrument. And, you know, obviously, like, the MIDI keyboard on any DAW is C, D, E, F.
Yeah.
You know? Like, the semitone is the smallest increment you can go.
Yeah.
So that's really important for me with collaboration. Even if I like somebody's work, I think sometimes we just can't bring each other to a new height or a different dimension. Yeah. So I would like to work with someone who does something completely in a different arena. You know?
Wow, that's so
like
interesting.
Him. Yeah, he's really cool.
Like microtones going from like 0 to like up to a tone with loads of reverb on it. That sounds insane.
Yeah. Yeah, right? It sounds so cool, right?
You have to do it now.
I would love to.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to, but I'm sure he's very busy.
Send him an email, mate. You know, you never know.
Yeah, I would love to. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, I have to like start gigging like first, you know, before like thinking about gigging with somebody in particular. I just need a job.
Yeah. Need some gigs, please. I have one more question. Do you have any advice for women who are starting to produce their own music at the moment?
Don't compare yourself to other musicians. Don't listen to what other people tell you about your music, because the most important thing is finding your own voice. It is such a waste of time to spend your precious time, energy, resources trying to sound like somebody else. Unless you're like maybe doing library music, then you don't mind. You know, if you just want to work to prompts, I think it's a great technique and skill set to have to be able to emulate a sound. But don't think, oh, maybe my music isn't good because it doesn't sound like actress, or you know, it doesn't sound like somebody else. There's no point, because imagine if you could very well make something that was up to the standard of, say, actress. People would just go listen to actress. Like, you know, like if I wasn't making music that I really wanted to hear, that I didn't believe somebody else could make, I would just be a music fan. Like, I would just be happy listening to other people's music. But I produce, why? Because I really like what I make, and I think other people can't make it because we're all different. And that's the part you need to hold on to the most. You can always pick up techniques, DAWs, streamlining your work, you know. You can always learn that later, but you need to establish your voice first. And once you establish your voice that you're really proud of, no criticism hurts. Like, you know, some people try to make me feel bad on the internet because like my music pisses them off or something. I don't give a shit, because I love my music, you know. Like, even if no one listened to it, I would still make it. And I think it's really important to have this love for your own art, even have a little bit of like a god complex. Like, You know, if somebody's like, I think your work is shit, and you're just like, well, I'm God, so like I don't care what you say.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, especially as a woman, like people are going to try to mansplain things to you the whole time. Yesterday, I went to an independent label market, and I mentioned I had a management, and this label dude tried to mansplain what having a label is like, management is like for me, you know. So like, especially for women, it's important to really believe like in what you're making. I'm not saying like if you sound like shit, just be like, "Oh, I'm awesome." Like, no, if you think you sound like shit, try to get to the level where you're like, actually,
I really
I'm
like
making
it.
quality stuff
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And then once you find that, like, don't let anyone violate it. Don't let anyone tell you that you should sound different. You know?
Great advice. Yes. I love the idea of God complex, because I think if you're like, you know, making music or I don't know, I think women get it harder. Like you kind of, it's always about being friendly and smiley and like welcoming all the time, and that gets so tiring. And it's like, sometimes I think it's good to have a bit of like, you know what I mean, like, don't mess me about.
Yeah. And like, I don't need your help, and I don't need your opinion. Like, what makes you think I need your validation so bad that I care if you like my music or not? You know, if I cared if people like my music, I probably wouldn't be making experimental music. Like, ever thought about that? And it's always this double-edged sword of like, you have to be like attractive and friendly and approachable in order to, you know, have anyone pay attention to you. But if you gain any attention, oh, she just got booked because she's a woman. It's like an agenda. Oh, she just got booked because, you know, she probably slept with the promoter, you know, stuff like that. And like, we can't win, so we might as well just disregard all these judgments and standards.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it that helps us. You know, it's like playing a rigged game. So just like stop playing the game altogether and like be your own god in this amazing musical
universe,
like, temple that you made, that you like luxuriate in.
Yeah, I like that. Luxuriate in it.
Yeah, like you're like being fanned by like angels and like eating grapes in your temple, and that's your music. I think this is how you should feel about your music.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. That's really inspiring. Oh, thank you so much for your time and for speaking to me. It was so brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yay.
See you.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening, and don't forget to subscribe and follow to this podcast. I'm Natalie McCool, and you can find me and my music on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and also on my website nataliemccool.co.uk. Thanks!